Hello, John Dove here from Speed Mooting, and welcome to the next episode of the Conversations with Counsel podcast. Today we have a very special guest. We've said that we would have students on the podcast, and this is the first time ever that we will feature a student on the podcast, hopefully the first of many. Our guest tonight, he is the 2024 National Speed Mooting competition champion, and he is also a third-year law student at Oxford Brookes University. So welcome to the podcast, Romeo Ezekiel Ocfemia.
Hi, John. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for coming on the podcast. So I'm sure that this is going to be a very interesting episode, and I'm sure you've got great advice for your fellow students nationwide and no doubt worldwide as well. So I'm going to start with a really easy one, Romeo. Nice sort of icebreaker question. So in your opinion, Romeo, what is the best day of the week?
To me, it's definitely going to have to be Friday. There's the whole weekend to look forward to, and after work or after university, you just get to relax and unwind a little bit. So to me, I definitely have to say Friday.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. There's just something, it's that Friday feeling, isn't it? Like they used to say on the Crunchy advert.
Yes, it's the anticipation, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm going to start, Romeo, by asking you about your time as a law student. So do you want to tell me a little bit about your journey into the law so far?
Okay, so I knew from the very beginning, I knew from a very young age that I wanted to be a lawyer, but I knew I didn't want to do it in the Philippines just because I wanted to get more perspectives. So I was looking into other countries, and the UK was the one that's most appealing to me. So that's where I applied. And I applied during the pandemic. So I was going in kind of blind. I'm a child of two immigrant parents, and I was raised in Doha, Qatar. So I knew I wanted to explore greener pastures. So when I was applying, I was kind of going in just looking at the websites, and Brookes is what appealed to me. So when I did eventually come here by the end of the pandemic, it was kind of going back to normal. So I had in-person classes, and 3 years later, I'm just now waiting for the degree. I'm very happy about it. I had no regrets. Brookes has been amazing. Their support has been incredible. So yeah, the opportunities has always been accredited to the people who did support me, and Brookes in general, who did give me those opportunities.
Oh, brilliant. Sounds like you've got a great support network there. So where did the inspiration to become a lawyer come from then? Did you watch a TV program or did you know any lawyers?
I'm the very first lawyer in my family, actually, which was really interesting. But growing up, I've always been into politics. I've always loved public speaking. I've always loved performing. But when I was in year 10, I was introduced to the concept of the law and the fact that despite you being ignorant from the law does not exempt you from it. So it's always going to be there whether or not you're informed. So I love the concept. It's just so interesting because lawyers play such a vital part in people's lives, because their life or a huge sum of money is going to be in your hands. And I don't know, I fell in love with the subject, and 3 years later I'm still in love with the subject. So I think that's what has inspired me and what keeps on inspiring me to be a better lawyer.
Oh, brilliant. So obviously very inspired there. And we can see that you've had that sort of inspiration from quite a young age as well. And as you say, talking about the love of public speaking, that goes hand in hand with the law, whether you want to be in court doing advocacy or even if you're going to be sort of office-based as a litigator or doing other forms of non-contentious work, public speaking is vital for any form of lawyer. So it's good that you've got
Exactly,
that sort of
yes.
core passion for those skills. Do you have any idea which area of law you want to go into, Romeo?
Actually, this has always been changing. I've always tried to explore different fields of law, but I'd never really stuck with one just because there's so much knowledge out there that you get to consume. One thing currently that I'm very interested in is international family law, which is very surprising for people who do know me because I'm very into commercial, international trade. But the Philippines is currently passing around a bill. It's the very first of its kind. It's called the divorce bill. So again, in the UK, divorce is very much a no-fault system, as well as a lot of other countries.
Mhm.
The Philippines is one of two countries that don't allow for divorce. The other one is the Vatican, which makes sense. But as a country with a secular government, it's very interesting to see these senators advocate against divorce when its main purpose is to protect women and protect children. And it's just so interesting to me. So that's what I'm trying to get myself into, exploring ways we could pass this bill into law and how we could do it properly so that everyone has the access to justice, not just the rich. So yeah, that's what I'm currently hyper fixated on.
Oh wow, really interesting. I mean, I was the same as you when I was at university. I kept chopping and changing all the time. You know, I went in at first year wanting to be a criminal barrister, just like probably most people do. And then you try all these different areas of law. You go to court, you see different things. So every semester, if you asked me that question, I would have given a different answer.
It
So
is,
yeah,
yes.
the best thing I could say, Romeo, is just keep an open mind there because you never know in a couple of years.
100%,
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely. So of course, you were mentioning about a bill that potentially may be passed there in the Philippines. So, in terms of the legal system out there, do you have a common law or civil law system?
So we have, in contrast to the UK, we do have a constitution, but again, I do very much agree more with the UK legal system. I don't know if there's a bias, but because I think just that society is ever so changing
Mm,
and the laws should be able to adapt to that as well. And I think the reason why this divorce bill is being held back is because they keep arguing for the side that it's unconstitutional. So again, there is a bit of politics when it comes to Philippine law as opposed to UK laws, which still does have a bit of politics in them, but not as much as the Philippines.
mm, mm. And do you have a separation in terms of litigators and advocates? So in this country, obviously, we have barristers and solicitors. Do you have a separation out there, or is it a fused profession?
Surprisingly not. It's very similar to the US. So if you are a lawyer, if you did pass the bar, you could be a court advocate or a solicitor. So again, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for them, but I have no doubt that they can practice it
Oh,
both as a solicitor and a barrister.
yeah, definitely, definitely. It's always interesting hearing about the differences in different parts of the world.
Yes.
So what makes the law so fascinating? So, do you have any memorable moments from your legal journey so far?
Oh, I have quite a few, but the most memorable one has always been the National Speed Moot. That's been the highlight of my degree. I did compete the previous cup. So I think what makes it more memorable was because I participated in the 2023 Autumn Cup and I
Mm,
didn't make it past the second round. So I tried again. And because I had these skills and I knew it was an intense competition, the feeling of winning has been exemplified. It's been multiplied by 100, and the feeling has just been surreal. It didn't sink in for a couple of days. And yeah, I think that's been the most memorable so far.
yeah, no, it's always nice to hear about stories like yours where you've had a go in one of our competitions and maybe not had as much success as you'd hoped for, gone back, worked on it, and then obviously improved the next time round. I'll probably, I'll speak to you in more detail later in the podcast
Yes.
about the speed moot. Um, but of course, you've mentioned that you've thoroughly enjoyed your time at Oxford Brookes, and of course the reasons that you've chosen to study there. So, did you find that there was any impact, particularly through COVID, on your studies whilst at university?
Yes, it did impact the way I chose universities because, again, at the height of COVID, it was supposedly the open days where my family and I was supposed to visit the UK. But that did not happen. So I just had to always look through the videos who had the most social media presence. To me, Brooks has always been one of my top choices, if not the top choice, just
Mm,
because of how well recommended they are by my family and friends.
Oh wow, yeah. That's it. If you can get personal recommendations, that's always half the battle, isn't it?
It
So
is.
because at least you've got sort of first hand knowledge there of whether it's a good university rather than just looking at reviews and things like that.
Yes.
So from your time at university, do you have a favorite subject and a least favorite subject?
I don't think I have a least favorite subject, just because I did enjoy, like, if not all my modules, most of it. Just, I don't know, it's the process of learning, and sometimes it can be quite dry. But when you do understand the concept, it's just this feeling of euphoria where you just, I don't know, every time you do coursework and don't understand it, it's the process. But
Mm.
definitely, my favorite subjects has always been linked to civil law. So a lot of tort, medical law, and also AI has been interesting. Commercial and international trade, just the rigidity of the acts, but the combination fixed, like the combination of rigidity and flexibility, it's just intriguing to me.
Yeah. So you mentioned AI there. Was that its own subject at university, or did it come up within different modules?
Yes, we do have an artificial intelligence law and computer law, so that's one of the few niche subjects that the university offers.
Yeah.
So we tackled a few things such as the regulation of AI, also intellectual property and how it will develop through AI. It's a very interesting subject.
I can imagine. Yeah, it sounds really interesting. I studied intellectual property, but that was many, many years ago, over a decade ago. So AI wasn't as prominent back then. So I can, now you mention it, I can see how the two will certainly interplay together. Um,
Definitely.
so obviously your time at university hasn't solely been sort of studying at lectures and doing coursework and things like that. So have you undertaken any work experience or volunteering roles whilst you've been at university?
Yes, a few legal internships with Family First solicitors in Oxford. There's also a few networking opportunities by Legal Cheek, but the most prominent, I believe, was the Clock Scheme, or the Community Legal Outreach Program held by Brookes. So we do it in collaboration with Keele University, where we do have a legal clinic where, again, we're supposed to assist but not really advise. So we do a lot of the paperwork, a lot of notes, standing as a Mackenzie friend. That's been what has really pushed me to go and work in courts and offices and just go straight with the path of law.
Yeah. No, that sounds like brilliant experience. And, I've spoken about this on the podcast before. That was certainly my downfall when I was at university, the fact that I didn't get involved enough. Whereas from what you're talking about there with that experience, obviously filling in paperwork, that when it comes to, when you come to apply for training contracts or pupillage or whatever it might be, you've got experience there of the actual work as a solicitor or barrister. Of course, getting into court, you get an exposure there to the court system, potentially networking as well. So, well done for getting so involved. And, I can't advocate that highly enough to other law students how important it is to get involved with programs like that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I saw that you won an award recently as well. I think it was the award for exceptional legal contributions. Um, well done there, Romeo. Do you
Thank
want to
you.
talk to us a little bit about your role as the president of your law society?
All right. So the Law Society is the biggest academic society at Oxford Brookes. We have over about 120 members and a 600 members in our alumni network. So we do a lot of events, both social and academic. I think the one that stands out is our partnerships with the College of Legal Practice, the UK Supreme Court, and also Inspire Law Global. So we do visits to the Inns of Courts for aspiring barristers. We do commercial awareness workshops for aspiring solicitors, and for those who want to pursue their education further, we have our partnership with the College of Legal Practice, where we get a big discount for their SQE route. So I think that's just a little bit about why I was nominated in the first place. But then again, I did reiterate that that award wasn't mine alone, because I definitely couldn't have done it without the support of all of the committee members, all the mentors, and all of the lecturers who supported us as a society.
Oh, brilliant. Well, it sounds like great work that you're doing there, so you should be proud of that alongside all of the others who've worked so hard on that programme. Now, you mentioned that you spent some time with a law firm, and you even, I think you spent some time in the Crown Court, didn't you? Did
Yes.
you have the opportunity to observe anything interesting in the Crown Court?
Yes. I think it was a lot of sentencing. There was one, I don't know if I'm allowed to specify the details, but you get surprised with people every now and again. A violation of a court order, you know, as much of prima facie we'd want to think that that's a bad thing, there's always a reason behind why that court order was broken. And you just see a little bit of humanity in people every now and again. You see people at their most vulnerable state,
Mm.
and it's just bringing out why I would want to be a lawyer. It's because I want to help people and just make them feel at ease, to know that someone's by their side. So it was a really interesting experience. I really enjoyed following that the court reporter.
Oh, brilliant. Well, glad to hear that you enjoyed your time in the Crown Court. Now, of course, we were talking earlier about the National Speed Mooting competition
Yes.
and the fact that you are our current reigning champion. Um, how did you? How was your experience of the day? Did you enjoy the competition?
It was a very interesting day, that's for sure. It was stressful. I think all of us were a little bit tired because of the time constraint given. But
Mm,
at the end of the day, I think by the time we were in the semis, I've made a lot of friends, because a lot of the people I ended up going up against stayed around, and they were extremely supportive. I could honestly tell you that I did not expect to go as far as I did, much less winning, because we knew we traveled a long way. We came from Oxford the night before.
mm.
So it was 5 hours. We just wanted to get to the third round, me and my friend James. But yeah, I think it was just us continually pushing each other, and the people around us continually pushing each other as well. It just gives you a sense of community within the law student community. But yeah, I loved it. Every feedback of the solicitors, I took it um as much as I could. I implemented it in the following rounds, and yeah, I think it's been such a great day.
Oh, glad to hear that. Now, of course, for those of you listening who may not know what the National Speed Mooting competition is, it's our flagship competition, and competitors are given the bundle the night before. So they receive the bundle at 5 p.m., and that would include all of the case law, legislation, and pre drafted skeleton arguments. So, Romeo, how did you deal with the challenge of having the papers so close to the competition?
Um, Not going to lie, I had a lot of coffee that day, and a lot of just being in the mindset that we are not going to waste this trip. We are going to just push through with it. The good thing about the competition is everything's been pre-drafted, especially the skeleton arguments, which was very, very helpful. And I think what also added to that was because I came with a friend,
Mm,
someone who we didn't rely on each other completely, but we supported each other. We anticipated judicial interventions, and we just bounced ideas off of each other, because I was reading the rules of the speed moot a few weeks prior, and there will be times where you have to be creative.
yeah.
And I think that came especially with the appellant's second round of appeal, where you were trying to overthrow a Supreme Court case in the Court of Appeal. At first instance, it didn't make sense, but then again, we just say that we could concede this point, maybe we could take this approach. And then it just ended up making things a bit easier.
Yeah. No, of course, and that's why we throw those challenges out there. It's testing your ability to think laterally and use some legal gymnastics there to sort of approach the problems. And but you've hit the nail on the head there with judicial intervention and trying to anticipate it in advance. And this is something I talk about all the time at the Advocacy Club when people ask me, how do you deal with judicial intervention? And the key thing is really look at the weaknesses in your case, look at the strengths of your opponent's case, and you can anticipate the question. So it sounds like that's what yourself and James have both done there. And of course, you're talking about bouncing ideas off each other. You'll do that throughout your legal career. You'll often find there'll be tricky cases and you'll have an opinion on the case, but you might want a second opinion. You'll speak to another lawyer about it. So, you'll always be doing that. So that was, good thinking to be bouncing those ideas off each other there.
Yeah, I think just because, we see this competition as something that's individual in nature, but again, inherently, the law is very much collaborative. So I do 100% agree with your point.
So, from speaking to you, it sounds like you've been involved in many extracurricular activities. Do you feel like they've benefited you as a law student?
Oh, yeah, I think they have. Being an international student, it's always going to be the case that you have to prove that you are employable, that people would want to invest in you. So the extracurriculars just give you an edge. And it's not only the edge, but also the network that you're building. Because when you're joining societies, when you're joining networking events, you build connections that could give you opportunities one day or could give you potential work experience. And that's what I've been consistently trying to improve on. But yes, extracurriculars does give me those opportunities that help me get an insight into a few of the fields. And to be honest, I'm still struggling as to whether or not I'd want to be a solicitor or barrister. But these experiences, these perspectives give me an insight as to what I would want to be if I do decide to become a lawyer.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the only way that you'll find out because, of course, you can have an idea beforehand, but until you go into a solicitor's firm, spend some time in there, do some experience, maybe go into a chambers, spend some time in court, unless you're doing those and seeing, the practice of a barrister and a solicitor at the coalface, you're never really going to know in real terms which you would prefer. So as you say, that first-hand experience is so important there.
100%.
Would you have any advice for any law students that might be thinking about getting involved in extracurricular activities?
Yes, so the opportunities are always going to be there. All you really have to do is say yes to it. Um, Engage with the opportunities that your respective universities give to you. There will be times where fear of embarrassment is there, but again, no one starts out being the best of the best unless they're really bad at something at first.
Hmm.
You're going to be facing tough judges, you're going to be facing rough clients, but again, practice as much as you can um while you're still in university, because this is kind of like our foundation for what we want to become.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of words and of advice for them.
Oh, perfect. Very inspirational there. Now, last question just before we move on to the fun round. So, obviously, it sounds like you've had some great experiences at university there, Romeo. So, do you have any advice for anybody starting out on their undergraduate law degree?
Oh, okay. So it will be difficult, but as long as you keep persisting, be tenacious in everything that you do, and keep striving to learn more, it's going to get easier. You're going to meet friends along the way. You're going to meet people who inspire you. And if you do stay on this path to that law degree, you're going to develop so many skills, soft and hard skills that will help you whether or not you'd want to become a lawyer.
Great advice there, Romeo. Couldn't agree more. And, as you say, enjoy the experience and you're going to build great skills for the rest of your life. Now, just before we finish, Romeo, we're going to go on to what we call our quick fire round at the end. So, non-legal questions now.
All right.
So the first one, what is your favourite way to relax?
Oh, definitely watching a movie. The I'm watching a series now called Scandal, which is so good. It's about a lawyer who fixes problems, and yeah, that's my current obsession at the moment.
Oh, brilliant. Now, if you had invisibility or super strength, which would you go for?
Invisibility, 100%.
All right. Any reason for that?
I don't. I think you could just sneak into so many places. You could get into a free airplane first class, and no one would notice. It's a lot
Absolutely.
about stealth.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. What is your favorite meal?
My favorite meal. Oh, it's a Filipino dish called sinigang, which is a tamarind-based soup with some pork or a form of protein in there. So I do recommend it for anyone who's very curious.
Oh, brilliant. Sounds nice. And finally, and I might know the answer to this one, which TV show, movie, or book would you recommend to others?
Legal or non-legal, because I have two.
Okay,
So
let's go with each.
so legal, 100%. The TV show Scandal. It follows a character named Olivia Pope who fixes like the problems of politicians and all high profile clients. And then for the non-legal one, it's um I'm surrounded by idiots, which just such an interesting book because you get to see different personality types and how you can better deal with those types of people.
Brilliant. Well, Romeo, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I'm sure that our listeners have learned so much from you. So once again, thank you to the 2024 National Speed Mooting Competition Champion, Romeo Ezekiel Ocfemia.
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you.